Okay, so our next speaker is Anat Hovav. She's a professor at Korea University of Business. Maybe not saying it completely right. She's going to talk about what is the response of people to cyber attacks. So we heard about various types of cyber attacks with various levels of frighteningness. And the question is, do people actually care? What do people do? So let's welcome Anat.
Okay. So my talk is, I don't know if these things work or not. They do. How do you go up and down? Who knows? My talk is not nearly as fancy and interesting as Bonnie's, but maybe the results are, and it's a little theoretical. I don't know, how do you get this to
So first of all, I'm going to do that.
Okay, go front.
And do full screen, and then what you do, Anat?
Yes.
No.
Oh, well, that would help. Okay, thank you. It's still not working. So, anyways, it's theoretical. I'm gonna somewhat skip the theory because I didn't realize that this was not a real academic setting, or it is academic setting, but the format was not. Anyways, the baseline for this theory, for this research, is basically it's not working. Two areas. I'm very well known in the area of behavioral security. Most people know my work on internal misuse, and way before Snowden came around, but I also do a lot of work in economics of cybersecurity. And basically this work is kind of intersecting these two areas. And I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but hopefully it works. So basically when you read industry reports, everybody runs around screaming that security is costly and really problematic, and it costs us a lot of money. And quite often, if there is an issue with private information, people say that one of the reasons that organizations lose money is because individuals tend to react. So the basic assumption is, if there was a breach and 300,000 credit cards were exposed, then the organization is going to lose money, partially because people will get up and leave. So what am I doing here? I don't know what I'm doing because it keeps going back and forth. So first of all, academically, academic studies that look at the market reaction to cyber attacks basically found that the market doesn't care, okay? Most often, the market may react negatively for about a day, and then after that it goes back to normal and nobody cares. Interestingly enough, nobody went around to say, well, what do people do, okay? So hopefully, if I'm doing it right. So that's basically what I decided to do, is look at what people actually do. We chose a theory called media dependency theory because, again, if you read industry reports, they basically say that if the media talks negatively about an attack, there is more chance that people will react. So that's why we chose media dependency theory, and I won't talk too much about the theory itself, but within media dependency theory, there is basically an idea. First of all, the theory itself says the more the media talks about something, the more people react. Very easy. I'm going to skip this because I think we're told that we don't have a whole lot of time. So within media dependency, there are three measures. We use two of them. Media understanding, meaning does the media provide you some understanding of what happened? And media orientation is more reactive. Does the media tell you what you need to do in order to get out of the jam? Okay, very basic again. Within media dependency, gosh, this is really, really pretty bad. Within media dependency research, there are studies that say that media messages could have several effects on people. One is what we call affective effect, which basically means people will change their attitude, and one is behavioral effect, which basically says that people will change their behavior. Of course, from a cybersecurity perspective, we like to see behavioral change, meaning we like to see people actually do something if they were hacked. So this is kind of what is going on here. Within media dependency theory, there is a subset of studies that look specifically at risk communication, meaning media messages that talk about risky things. So research says that most people perceive risk a little bit different than they perceive positive messages. So these two people, you guys probably know, they came from Tel Aviv University a billion years ago.
Hebrew University.
Hebrew University? Sorry. Well, they're from Israel, anyways. So we're all good.
They belong to us.
Yes. So basically, the idea is that if the consequence is low, it doesn't matter what the probability that it would happen, that that event will happen. And if you ever read prospect theory, you kind of know that. So I think it was yesterday, because Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're all kind of blurry by now. But I went to one of these panels, and the guy said, well, until someone gets killed by a cyber attack, consequences are low, okay? So that's really how risk communication works. And I listed a whole bunch of studies that looked at it, and we don't really have time, but anyone that wants these can ask me, and I'll give them the presentation. There's also an issue of centrality, and basically the idea is if something is central to you, you tend to analyze it differently than if something is not central to you, if it's peripheral to you. And again, I'm not going to have a lot of time to talk about why that matters, but it does matter. And again, most studies said that risk communication increases anxiety. A lot of studies looked at anxiety, which is affective effect, but to date, no study actually looked at actual behavioral changes. So there are some studies that look at intention to change behavior, but not at actual behavioral changes. So basically, I have no idea what it says, and I don't know. Do you guys see it, any of this? I should have probably done some different colors. So again,
That's okay. We see it.
you see it? Because I can't. So good. Well, at least somebody can see it. So I just said that prior studies looked at intentions, but not at actual behavior. One last item in the model that I will show you in a minute has to do with trust in the media. We all know about fake news now and lack of trust in the media, so of course we had to measure trust in media messages. Otherwise, that's not good. So this is our model. Again, I told you this is like the way, real theory kind of thing. This is basically the model, and the idea is if the media tells you that something really bad happened, it should increase your anxiety. It should increase your risk aversion, which means you should change your behavior. How many people think that is really the way it works? Nobody. How many people think it doesn't work that way? Oh, how many people don't think at all? I guess most of you. Okay. So anyways, skip this. Again, this is for people who are interested. So the bottom line was I was really lucky. Okay, there was a major attack in Korea that affected about 60% of the adult population, maybe slightly more. Wonderful opportunity to actually examine this. So what we did is, right after the attack, we developed our instrument and did all the good things that researchers do. And we actually surveyed people that were attacked and people that were not attacked but heard about it, which was almost everybody else. It was very highly publicized case. So we actually compared the two groups. And for the non-attacked people, people that heard about the incident but were not attacked, this thing worked really well, okay, the model, the theory. And the risk aversion basically said, if you were attacked, would you change your behavior? And change your behavior was basically, are you going to change your password? In Korea, we use PKI for practically everything. So are you going to change your PKI? Are you going to change your password? Are you going to throw away your credit card? Are you going to change your bank? Okay? So the attack was against 3 major credit card companies. And as I mentioned before, 60% of the adult population in Korea had their credit card information stolen. Okay, that's a lot. So basically, we found the 40% that was not hacked, and we asked them, if you were hacked, would you make a change? And of course, the answer was yes. And I mean, 43% for academic research is pretty good. However, when we asked the people who were attacked, did you make any changes? The answer was no, nothing. Now, we also collected qualitative data, which is all in Korean. I couldn't directly read it, but I have a slew of doctoral students who are very good at it. And there were a lot of different reasons of why people did not make any changes. I listed some of them here. And some of them we actually had enough data to measure. So one reason would be it's too costly, too time consuming. So we actually had enough data for that, and we measured that, and that didn't make much of a difference. Some of it had to do with the idea of self-efficacy. We don't know how to do it. We don't have the ability, the knowledge. We actually measured that as well. We had data on that, and that didn't seem to have much of an effect. So we started looking at some other things that maybe we can research in the future. One of them is called numbing effect, which we did not measure, but we intend to do in the future. And that has to do with kind of like what Bonnie was talking about. When there's just too much, people just say, okay, I give up. You know, I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. Some of it had to do with centrality and anchoring points and prospect theory, where people feel like if the cost is not that much, if the consequences are not that high, we just forget it. You know, it's not worth dealing with it. We also would have liked to do a longitudinal study, because we don't really know exactly at what point the anxiety was high, and we're not really sure how that can be measured. I don't know, maybe we can, you know, put some MRI things into people's heads and do that. But how can we actually measure anxiety over time and see if that makes a difference? So there are other theories. Basically, one of the theories that one of my students kind of proposed is Stockholm syndrome, which if you're in criminology, you know that that is some sort of a kind of idea that you feel close to your attacker. Now, it's not like that's exactly what happened, but a lot of people in the qualitative data that we collected say, hey, you know, it's really not the bank's fault. So if we leave the bank, the employees will suffer because maybe they're going to get fired, but it's really not their fault. So why should we punish the bank? You know, they didn't do anything wrong. So we got a lot of interesting answers of why people did not do what they were supposed to, or what we expect them to do. A few limitations, because that's what we do always. We have to kind of defend ourselves from, not being completely right. So basically, well, I guess these are implications, but before I go to implications, I basically have to say that this study was done in Korea. The results might be very different if it was done elsewhere. Of course, we only surveyed several hundred people from each group. If we did more, maybe there would be different results, although I think I doubt that that would be the case. And again, it would be nice if there was a way where we could actually look at this for a long period of time to see how people's anxiety and subsequent behavior would be affected over time. But some implications. So again, these results might explain why the market doesn't particularly care when companies are attacked. If the customer doesn't care, then why should the market care? Okay? So another thing is, how do we give some incentives to customers to actually react? What should we have done to help them go out and say, hey, you should change your password, you should change, oh, okay, good. You should change your password, you should change, of course, the company is not gonna say, throw away your credit card, because it costs them $100 a piece to replace it. So, of course, we need to figure out how we can deal with this. And then I know there are a lot of policy people here. At least I've seen them in the last 2.5 years. Is there any relevancy to policymakers? Can they do something that would make this different? And this is thank you, and I pulled this from the internet, and you can see that the Toda is upside down. And there is no one in Korean, so this is up there is the way you say thank you in Korean. And that's it. That's my presentation. And if you have any questions at my own time.
Yes, we do have some time for questions. Please, I encourage you to ask it. This is an academic conference.
Any hard questions, please.
You can ask encouraging questions like,
No.
what is the applicability of your... Yeah. Yes, Bonnie.
Oh.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, so I think, yeah, we find people that say they're going to behave a certain way because they know to be secure, this is what you do. But in the actual situation, they tend not to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, so you said part of it, they didn't want people to lose their jobs or whatever. So it seems like you had a variety of questions. So did they at least change their password but
No.
not leave the bank, or?
No. No.
Oh.
No. And I know I got at least 10 emails from one of the banks that say you got to change your password stuff. Honestly, I didn't.
Really?
And why didn't you?
Because what difference does it make? So they'll hack them again, and then we'll have to change it again. So I don't know. It's too much work.
Yes.
So that's the question that I wanted to push on a little bit. I'm arguably a person who knows cybersecurity better than the average person on the street. There have been credit cards that have been stolen from me because of some compromise at the bank and something, and I don't do anything different at all. I mean, it's the bank's responsibility. At least in the United States, the security is the bank's, and I don't pay any penalty at all for it.
Right.
So why should I? Why should anybody do anything about it? Assuming that the Korean situation is the same legal situation.
It's pretty much the same, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then I don't understand why anybody should do anything differently.
Well, but if you read industry reports, they scream and yell that people leave and that, there's customer churn. So that's why I did this study. Because if you read industry reports, they say that after an attack, there's a huge customer churn. People leave. They leave the bank. They go to another bank. And I said, well, you know, maybe that's what industry says, but I don't necessarily trust what they say. So I wanted to study it from an academic perspective. And
you conclude the answer is no, they don't.
no, they don't do anything.
We're sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do
So
I have- can I just give
you
him
always
one
have
more
time for one
second.
more sentence.
One
Yeah.
more second. If you're the CEO and you know that your customers are not going to do anything, what are the chances that you're going to go and invest billions of dollars in putting all these technologies that we've been talking about for the last 2 days?
No. So guys,
We're done.
thank you so much. Thank you, Anat.
Thank you.